Jayden Daniels has been one of the best quarterbacks this season against the blitz, and it was the Pittsburgh Steelers' ability to get pressure without blitzing that gave them the upper hand in their Week 10 win over the Washington Commanders. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, everybody, to today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, David Harris, credential member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for CommanderGameDay.com. You can also find me covering the Commanders for WUSA9.com this season, and I'm here with you every Monday through Friday. I greatly appreciate you coming through today. Everydayers, I appreciate you coming through every single day for today's episode of Locked On Commanders, in which we're going to cover our Philadelphia Eagles first look short week. So we've got to kind of condense some things into some shorter time frame. So we're going to do our film review episode, and we're also going to get into our first look of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to talk about bad spots, bad coverages, and we're going to kick it all off by looking at Jayden Daniels under pressure on this daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode, completely free. Today's episode is sponsored to you by Ultimate GM. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. So film review time, film study time here. I went through the tape. I got some suggestions from our insiders, from Commanders fans, and we're going to take a look at kind of what was supposed to happen in this Washington Commanders game and ultimately how it unfolded. Of course, the Commanders were favored by 2.5 points. Coming into the contest, they ended up losing by 1 point in the end of the day. Jayden Daniels was under pressure quite often during this game. It was easy to see that from the stadium. It was easy to see that in the broadcast. He talked about it. The coach talked about it. You know, it just felt like a more cohesive pass rush than the Washington Commanders have really seen all year long. And I really, go back to the week before leading up to the Steelers matchup, and we talked about how this is arguably the best defense of this Washington Commanders will face all season, have faced certainly up to this point in the season. And then when you look at kind of some of the things they've been able to do offensively, might even just be the best team holistically on all levels. Obviously, the Ravens offense is probably more dangerous, but when you look at what, all phases of the team are doing, the Steelers special teams as well has been one of the better units in the NFL this year. So probably the hardest competition they're going to have all season long. Of course, the Philadelphia Eagles are no slouch, so that's not meant to degrade any other competitors here. But what the Pittsburgh Steelers were really able to do against Jayden Daniels, and why it looked like there was so much added pressure when in reality they didn't blitz all that much, was because of the unison of it and the simulated pressures and what those simulated pressures were able to do to the Washington Commanders offensive line. So total in the game, Jayden Daniels was pressured on 11 of his 37 dropbacks officially. He completed 1 of 8 attempts on those 11 pressures. That's a 12% completion rate. The one completion was a 28-yard pass to Terry McLaurin. So that obviously is a very good completion, but it's the only one. There was also 1 drop, and then there were 3 passes, 3 dropbacks where they threw the ball away. He was sacked 3 times on those pressures. So again, 8 pass attempts, 3 sacks equals 11. The pressure to sack rate was a 27.3% rate, significantly higher than the 17.5% pressure to sack rate in his first 9 weeks. So Jayden Daniels, those pressures converting into sacks much more often against the Pittsburgh Steelers than they had all season long. 8 times Jayden Daniels was hit, hurried, or sacked, right? So those are pressures in 2.5 seconds or less. So of those 11 pressures, 8 of them came in 2.5 seconds or less. So this is not a situation of Jayden Daniels just holding the ball too long all day long. This is a situation of this Steelers defensive front beating the Washington Commanders defensive front. Can't break each and every single pressure down. So here's some notes from the overall collection of the pressure study. Simulated pressure, like we just kind of already referenced, really knocked the offensive line off balance at times. It resulted in open rushers multiple times. There are multiple times where Tyler Biadasz has the unenviable task of looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers front, what they're presenting, sometimes 6-7 guys on the line of scrimmage, and he's got to try to pick out which ones are actually coming, which ones are not coming, which ones are we going to assign, which ones are we going to leave open. It's just unrealistic to expect Tyler to nail it every single time. But certainly the Pittsburgh Steelers winning this last week more often than I think we've seen Tyler Biadasz get beaten in that balance of the game, in that portion of the chess match than we had before. Jayden Daniels also was throwing while falling away against that pressure, not following through on his passes, which leads to high passes because off balance back foot throws typically lead to a higher trajectory on the ball. So that's where you see some of those overthrows and some of those overleads. And honestly, probably trying to overcompensate for that, throw the ball a little bit behind where his trajectory is, leading to some of those off target throws that are behind guys. So it's just really just a combination of things that lead to inaccurate passing. Pocket discipline by the Pittsburgh Steelers pass rush as well. As cohesive as the Steelers pass rush was on Sunday and as aggressive as it really did appear to be, when you really turn on the tape and you really look at it and you really just kind of focus on the trenches, the Pittsburgh Steelers not rushing past Jayden Daniels all that often, if ever. And that's something, if you go back to our conversations about the Commanders defense facing guys like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, even Russell Wilson, who doesn't really like to use his legs as a weapon and doesn't have as many, he's not as quick and as fast as he once was. Surely still has that capability at times. The Pittsburgh Steelers probably the most disciplined pass rush that this Washington Commanders offense has seen. And so quarterback Jayden Daniels has seen, which led to some of his not being able to get out, among other things, which we'll get into here in a second. There were 2 screen attempts that were both just botched. Screen attempt to Austin Eckler early was messed up. Trent Scott got pushed back into the play. Austin Eckler ran into the back of him and just never was able to get out for the screen pass. You actually end up with, his pulling linemen are way out in front of him compared to where they're supposed to be. The second was just blown up by good reads by the Steelers defensive front. They sniffed it out, got in a position to get in the way of it. Jayden Daniels just had to dirt those balls. So the screen game not working for the Washington Commanders against the Steelers either. Brandon Coleman got beat around the outside on one of the free rushers. He was originally assigned to a different defender, blocked him. Nick Allegretti tried to transition over, free Brandon Coleman and get that outside rusher. It was just too late, and Brandon couldn't get out there enough, leading to a free rusher. Jayden actually escaped that one. If you remember that sideline pass to Luke McCaffrey that Luke unfortunately dropped, that was that play where Brandon wasn't able to get over in time, but Jayden was able to evade that pass rush, get the ball off anyway. So good play by Jayden, but that's just one of those examples of a free rusher coming. And, you have that simulated pressure. And again, you have to be able to block it up correctly. Trent Scott was beat by TJ Watt on another pass rush, leading to a hit on his arm, on Jayden Daniels' arm at the throw point, leading to the incompletion. Free rusher from the middle linebacker level was led in on the 28-yard throw to Terry McLaurin, but a slot fade. And we know that's Jayden Daniels' favorite throw going back to college is that slot fade. Why? Because it leaves you more room to the boundary to place the ball. So even though there was a free middle linebacker coming, even though Jayden Daniels threw off his back foot, able to throw that slot fade to Terry McLaurin, Terry is able to not just get up the field, but use his football IQ. If you go back and watch that play, pay attention to Terry McLaurin as he's running that slot fade into his stem. He's not going to the boundary where the ball is going to be. He's staying upfield. He's staying into the field of play a little bit more to make sure that defender can't get a beat on it. And then at the last second, he kind of bends out towards the ball to make sure that the receiver or the defender can't make a play on that ball. Very similar to what De'Ami Brown did in the preseason against the New York Jets. Exactly how you're supposed to play a fade route like that if you're the wide receiver. So combination of things they're working out for that 28-yard play to get completed. So ultimately against pressure, 2 blown screens, 1 immediate pressure escaped and then a drop pass, 1 immediate pressure leading to a quarterback hit and an incompletion, 1 28-yard completion, 2 open rushers created by simulated pressures leading to missed blocked assignments, 3 coverage sacks, coverage pressures and sacks. Jayden has always been willing to throw off his back foot, always been willing to throw with a little bit more of a narrow platform, but usually he stands taller than he did this last weekend. Also doesn't seem to be torquing as much, right? When he's throwing the ball, doesn't seem to be torquing his upper section, his torso, I should say. And it does lend some concern as, is that rib not only still bothering him, but maybe did it limit him against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jayden says that he still feels the rib, but that it's getting better and continues to get better. We'll have to see how that looks against the Philadelphia Eagles, but certainly seemed to be a little bit of why he couldn't escape as much. When he did escape, didn't seem to have as much oomph behind the run. And then even on some of those throws that he is used to making off balance, a little bit off that back foot, still not getting there, I think, based on just that inability to kind of torque his torso as much as usual. So that's my look at Jayden Daniels under pressure. We got 2 more film reviews to go over here. 2 key plays from this Washington Commanders game. The 4th and 9 pass to Zach Ertz that ended up being the final play of the game for the offense. And of course, the infamous Mike Williams touchdown. Both of those coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you in part by Ultimate GM. Commanders fans, remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM from last year? Well, they're back, and they've added an amazing new game mode that we're going to tell you about here. The game that has you step into the footsteps of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory now has a head coach career mode. So you can not only can you be the GM, but you can be the head coach. So on top of getting to build the dynasty, draft the players, sign the free agents, hire the coaching staff, now you can call offensive plays during the game as well. Additionally, you'll dig into new tools that you can work with, such as individual training camps and upgraded negotiation systems. So this fun and realistic game just got a whole lot better. If you've already got it installed, just update it. If you haven't installed it, go ahead and check it out. Ultimate GM, Ultimate Football GM, Pro Football GM is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. And there's a special offer. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure you get it. This perk is going to jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you're going to need. So download the game by going to ultimate-gm.com or look it up on your app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. This episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you by FanDuel. Fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets on all the NFL action all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go to FanDuel, you can check out the latest stats, you can view the play-by-play of the game, and so much more on the exact same place that you can then place that bet. Or you can make bets before the games, like on the Washington Commanders, who are 3-point underdogs on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles this Thursday night. Either way, go to FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Continuing our film review episode here of Locked On Commanders, bleeding right into our first look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. If you want to get even more out of the program, go beyond the program, all you got to do is become an insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders, and you'll get access to me and Washington Commanders news, information, analysis, and opinions that go beyond the Locked On Commanders podcast. Again, join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to try it out for free for the first 2 weeks. Now, typically, we go through our sustain and improve segment here, but because, like I said, we are on a little bit of a condensed timeline, we're actually going to skip over the sustains and improves. I think we all understand there's a lot of things we want to see this team do better at, that they have been doing better at: tackling for one, smart coverage for another, blocking, pass rushing for another. Jayden Daniels, hopefully his health is getting a little better, less of a determining factor, or less of a controllable factor, I should say, but certainly a determining factor. We'd love to see Brian Robinson back on the field as well. So I think the sustains and improves coming out of the Pittsburgh Steelers game, we've talked a little bit about at least some of them, even if we haven't hammered on them specifically. So we'll get back to that next week following this Philadelphia Eagles game. But today we're going to add in 2 more plays to look at in our What Happened segment of the after action review here. And insiders wanted to look at the 4th and 9 pass to Zach Ertz. I think specifically wanted to know what happened on the play. Was there a better option? And then what about the spot? So this is the final offensive play of the game. It was ruled short of the first down marker, upheld on review. Dan Quinn did say in his Monday Zoom press conference that they have petitioned the league to just look at it and say, hey, like, what the heck happened on this play? Because it looks to us like, the ball was not spotted correctly. There's nothing that, even if the NFL comes back to the Commanders and says, yeah, guys, we botched that one, sorry, nothing's going to happen. Like, there's just nothing that can be done. Basically what they can say is, we'll tell that crew to be better next time. Doesn't help you right now, but hopefully maybe avoids a similar situation in the future. So on that play, Washington Commanders come out in shotgun, empty backfield, 11 personnel. So there's 1 running back on the field, 1 tight end on the field, 3-by-2 formation from the left to right side. So there's 3 skill position players lined up to the left, 2 skill position players lined up to the right, from right to left. Wide receiver Noah Brown is split wide on the right side, and he's running a deep over route. So he'll be running from the right side of the formation over to the left. Austin Eckler is in the right side slot. He's going to block and release off of the edge. Luke McCaffrey is the inside left side slot receiver. He's going to chip release into the flat. Zach Ertz is the left side slot as well, but outside of McCaffrey, inside of Terry McLaurin, he's going to run a middle hitch at the sticks. And then Terry McLaurin is your far left split wide receiver, who's running matching over routes with Noah Brown from the left side to the right side this time. Obviously, as Noah Brown's on the right to left. Now, the first 2 reads are actually the deep over. So Jayden Daniels very quickly kind of glances over to Noah Brown on the right side. Comes very quickly off of that. I think he sees the Steelers defense kind of dropping into that zone. So he says, okay, that's not going to be there. Comes all the way back to the left side to Terry McLaurin, stays there a bit longer. The defense is also dropping into that zone, and then he comes off and goes to Zach Ertz. Now, by the time he gets to Zach Ertz, it's already Zach Ertz has already run his hitch, right? He's already come out of his break. He's completed the hitch route, and that makes the throw late. It forces Zach Ertz to come back towards the line of scrimmage to attack the ball. If the ball is getting there when he turns, like it's preferably supposed to be, then he's 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, past the stick, secures the ball for a first down. Play continues, and the Washington Commanders, in my opinion, probably win this game because he has to come back to the ball to prevent the defense from getting a good jump on it. It opens up the spotting issue, and of course, the rest of it is now history. The drop was a little bit lazy from Jayden, right? So breaking down Jayden on this play, the drop was a little lazy, not really very crisp. And when he goes to fire the ball to Zach Ertz, his feet are right underneath him. He doesn't have a good throwing platform, so he actually has to kind of kick his legs out to get into a throwing position. And it costs him a little bit of time before he can get that ball out. And, in this game of inches, right, those milliseconds matter. So that's a situation. I think if you're Jayden Daniels and if you're this coaching staff, you're going to say, hey, dude, like, get back in that drop in a throwing position, right? The old cliche of, stay ready, don't have to get ready. That's kind of one of those situations where Jayden Daniels really wasn't ready to throw the ball to Zach Ertz there. So he had to get ready on the spot, and it cost him, even a fraction of a second longer to get that ball out. Certainly can still matter. Now, still the ball is there on time. And there's no doubt in my mind that when Ertz touches that football, when Ertz is touched down, rather, I should say. So when Ertz brings the ball in, he is past the marker, and then he kind of comes forward, right? And the thing about forward progress is forward progress is only applied to when you're forced backwards by a defense. If you're willingly moving backwards, that doesn't apply. However, even with that, as Zach Ertz comes forward, catches the ball, stops, starts to lean back, starts to lean over, try to get to that down marker, by the time he's touched down, his knee goes to the ground. By the time he's touched down, that ball, if you look at it, if you can freeze it from the all 22 end zone view, if you have like NFL Plus or Pro and all that stuff, the ball to me looks like it's parallel with his hip. His hip is right over the 41-yard line. So to me, that ball is at the 41-yard line, and that's where the line to gain was set. The line to gain marker wasn't past the 41-yard line. It was actually just shy of the 41-yard line. So to me, that's where the ball should have been marked. The officials marked it at the 42. So when we're talking like in a game of inches, we're talking about a 3-foot difference in the ball spot. So I don't know how the review didn't at least respot and remeasure, but it is what it is. That's where we come from. Again, I think Jayden, it's possible that Jayden stayed on Terry. Like I mentioned in there that he stayed on Terry a little bit longer than you would probably expect him to. It's possible he was doing that, hoping to get the Steelers secondary to kind of drop back a little bit deeper. It didn't necessarily work. There was an underneath Steelers defender who really didn't bite on that behavior. So it's possible that's what Jayden was trying to do. And then, kind of standing there upright like that, again, kind of give the body language of I'm looking deep, because that's what a lot of quarterbacks do when they're looking deep. So it's possible that Jayden was doing all this stuff on purpose, trying to trick the Steelers defense, and it just didn't work, right? Like sometimes it's just not going to work. So I can't speak for Jayden on that one, but certainly a possibility just from looking at that. And again, we're going to talk to him Tuesday afternoon, but we're on to the Eagles, so we're not really going to harp on that too much. Looking at now at the Mike Williams touchdown, again, one of the bigger plays of the game. Certainly a lot of people just flat out blaming Benjamin St-Juste for the loss. I'll tell you, like I said on the post-game report, no one player is to blame for this loss. There's certainly a lot of mistakes that could have been cleaned up, any number of them, and the Washington Commanders come out with a win. Like even with this Mike Williams touchdown, if Jayden can get that ball to Luke McCaffrey on that over route instead of overthrowing him, he's potentially gone. I mean, he's running away from his defender at that point in time, and the other safety is not in a position to make a play. So Luke McCaffrey might be gone for a 90-yard touchdown. And if he gets that touchdown, this Mike Williams touchdown doesn't even matter, right? The Steelers are in shotgun with the running back lined up to the left side of Russell Wilson. They're 3-by-1 from right to left. So 3 skill position players lined up to the right side of their formation, 1 to the left side of their formation, 3 receivers bunched to the right. Mike Williams is split by himself on the left-hand side. The Commanders show 2 high coverage. They got 2 safeties deep pre-snap, but at the snap, they drop into cover 1. Quan Martin is lined up, and he's the deep safety. He's lined up on the opposite side hash from Benjamin St-Juste, who has no help whatsoever over the top. Martin is shading the opposite side of that formation where the 3 receivers are and providing top coverage for Noah Igbenogany, who is the only corner on that side of the field that goes into trail technique, right? So he lets the wide receiver get on top of him, basically follows underneath him, and Quan Martin takes the over top coverage of that receiver. That's exactly how that's supposed to be played. Jeremy Chin and Mike Sandersill, both on the left side, both stay deeper than their receiver. Make sure keep the play ahead of them or in front of them. If something is completed, come down, make the tackle. That's exactly what you should do. That's exactly what Benjamin St-Juste should have done. Russ puts his eyes on Martin at the snap to keep him locked in on that side of the field and basically throws what's almost a no-look pass to that left side boundary, the outside quarter of the field to Mike Williams, who's running then free past Benjamin St-Juste. So good play design by the Pittsburgh Steelers to ensure that they get cover one. They got, the look that they wanted. Sure, there could have been a check into cover two, but that's not what happened. And Benjamin St-Juste knew it was cover one behind him, knew that Quan Martin was that cover one safety on the opposite side of the field. So again, he took accountability for all that as well. But that's essentially what happened on that play to Mike Williams and ends up being the game-winning score in a loss. But time to flip the page, time to turn the page from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Philadelphia Eagles. Our first look at the Eagles coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Game Time. Game Time has a cool feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, whether it's comedy, theater, concerts, or games. Comedy, Game Time Picks will filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on the greatest seats. And my Game Time Picks right now show me tickets to see the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Washington Commanders for $244, or I can see the Toronto Maple Leafs visiting the Washington Capitals for $30. All in pricing, I toggle that on my app, and I get the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we did our film review of Jayden Daniels under pressure. We looked at the 4th and 9 play that ultimately ended the game for the Washington Commanders, and we looked at the Mike Williams touchdown a little bit deeper in some analysis. Now we are going to turn the page towards the Philadelphia Eagles. No unsung heroes this week, no Quinn's quotes this week. Again, we're going to start our look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Tomorrow's episode, I will dive into our 3 must-dos, and then, of course, on Thursday ahead of the game, crossover Thursday with Locked On Eagles will be dropping here on the channel. So lots of content still coming before the game. Our first look at the Eagles offensively, top 10 in yards per play, rush yards per play, and pass yards per play. So top 10 offensively in every important category, middle of the league in third down offense, 10th in red zone offense, second best in goal to go, and 4th in time of possession. They're also 7th in scoring offense, putting up 25.9 points per game. So the Philadelphia Eagles, I know they ended last year very rough. They've certainly picked it up here lately, and 28 or more points scored in each of the last 4 games, which have come against the Giants, Bengals, Jaguars, and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, a little bit of grain of salt, all 4 of those teams are in the bottom half of the league in scoring defense. Now, they scored no more than 21 points in weeks 2 to 6. Their bye week was in week 5, so it's only 4 games. That's against the Falcons, Saints, the Bucks, and the Browns. Also, all teams that are in the back half of scoring defense, but they are a little bit higher. So I think that kind of gives you a little bit of a realm of like, we can probably expect this Eagles team to put up 23, 24 points up against this Washington Commanders defense. And that's, of course, barring any weird situations like fumbling deep in your own end on a punt return. Jalen Hurts has been sacked 26 times in 9 games this season, the 4th highest among quarterbacks with less than 10 games played. So there are some quarterbacks that have been sacked more that have played a full 10 games this season because they haven't had their bye week yet. His pressure to sack percentage is 21.1%. That's the 12th highest among qualified quarterbacks. The offensive line has the 2nd lowest pass blocking efficiency rating. So that's certainly an impact here. Left tackle Fred Johnson has given up the 2nd most pressures of all linemen this season, 32 of them. That's resulted in 7 sacks. Left guard Landon Dickerson, I'm trying to pick up some slack for him, has given up the 2nd most pressures on this team, 27th overall for offensive linemen. 21 pressures have led to 3 sacks. So that's 10 sacks from the left side duo alone. Now, left tackle, Eagles left tackle Jordan Mailata has had his window to return from IR opened. Eagles fans are hoping that he'll be able to return by Thursday. Typically, when that window gets opened, it's another week before that player actually returns. We'll have to see if that Washington Commanders defense is going to have to face Jordan Mailata or Fred Johnson. Obviously, Fred Johnson is the guy that you want to fight, you want to challenge if you can. But either way, this Commanders pass rush, especially that right side, that's Dante Fowler and Cleveland Farrell territory, they're going to need to be impactful in this game. On defense, the Eagles have allowed the second lowest yards per play. They've allowed the 12th fewest rush yards per play and the fewest pass rush yards per play. So the defense has also been doing pretty well as well. The fewest first downs allowed per game this season. They're allowing less than 36% third down conversions and third best red zone defense so far. The fifth best scoring defense, allowing 17.9 points per game allowed. Linebacker Nakobe Dean has been the best pass rusher as far as pass rush win rate is concerned. He's winning 18.4% of the time that he rushes. Defensive end edge rusher outside linebacker Josh Sweat is second on the team with 17%. Defensive lineman Jalen Carter has the most total pressures with 32. Josh Sweat has 31, and Josh Sweat is your leader in sacks for the Philadelphia Eagles with 5. Jalen Carter is coming through with 4. Josh Sweat is lined up on the right side. Jalen Carter is the left side defensive tackle, which means you're going to have to defend this entire Philadelphia Eagles front. Obviously, you do that every week, but you're definitely going to have to make sure you've got it set this week. So Tyler Biadasz and his pass blocking sets are going to be important. Sam Cosmi going up against Jalen Carter is going to be important. Brandon Coleman and the chip blocks that they give him to help out against Josh Sweat are going to matter big time as well. They're going to face a lot of simulated pressures from this Philadelphia Eagles defense, 2 and 3 down linemen, but relatively few actual blitzes. So it's going to be incumbent on Tyler Biadasz to be able to identify who's coming, who's not coming. Mostly 4 down rushers. They usually use 2 high shells, keep plays in front of them, plenty of zone, making anticipation very, very important for Jayden Daniels. Most linebackers, most time when they blitz, it comes from the linebacker level. Very few defensive back blitzes. In coverage, Darius Slay is actually allowing the highest passer rating, but it's Reed Blankenship, the safety, that's giving up the highest completion rate among Eagles defensive backs. Nolan Smith is the front 7 player that you want to target when he drops in coverage, which is only about 22.4% of the time. But when he is in coverage, he's giving up a lot of damage, a lot of real estate to opposing offense. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, both linebackers, dropping coverage the most amongst linebackers, and both are allowing north of 75% completion rates. Dean is allowing a 104.1 passer rating, and Zach Bond is allowing a 74.3 passer rating. So targeting those linebackers in the passing game could certainly work out for the Washington Commanders. The Eagles have only given up 20 passes of 20 yards or more. They pretty much all come from the slot, reduced splits, or from the backfield. So not a lot of big plays being given up by the Eagles defense on the boundary, which is where we know Jayden Daniels likes to throw. But he does like those fades, those slot fades. So certainly something that maybe the Washington Commanders could take advantage of. That's our first look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, tomorrow's episode, I'm going to give you the 3 things that this Washington Commanders team has to do to get a win in Philly, and we're going to break them down in depth. And then on Thursday, we will have our crossover Thursday episode with the hosts of Locked On Eagles. That's all coming up on this channel here in the next couple of days. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, all you got to do is text me. In order to do that, all you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast in the morning. You get the madman Tyler Rowland kicking you off with a double shot of NFL espresso. In the afternoon, come through the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. It's the all-new Locked On NFL, and it is twice per day. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thank you for coming through on a regular basis like you do. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.